What is going on? Welcome back to another week of NFL picks. As we are coming down to the end, we are starting to wind down. Still 4 very important weeks left to go. Obviously, the playoffs, which I will be doing predictions for. If y'all remember how I did it last year, right after the regular season ended, I did make a video of my official playoff predictions. So once the regular season does end, that's what I will be doing against all the way, obviously, up to the Super Bowl. But exciting week. Really feel like the slate that we have is kind of it represents teams playing meaningful games. And without further ado, man, let's get it started. Results so far. Last week went 8-5, pretty all right. Took a few flyers. I feel like that I thought would go my way. Obviously, they didn't. But 8-5 overall record, 121-87. Lock of the week, 13. Won an upset of the week, 1-13. And we're done with bye weeks. We are done with bye weeks. All 16 teams from here on out, at least until the end of the regular season. We're going to have 16 games, all 32 teams playing. And starting off with Thursday night football, and that has 2 fringe playoff teams that chance alive, especially for San Francisco. San Francisco, it really feels like you honestly got to have this if you want any chance to stay alive in the NFC West. But still a game that they very much need to win. It would look at. So it's a must-win game for both teams. Ultimately, it's a game you could see going either way. You feel like the Rams, it's a game they can come out and win, but it also this feels like a San Francisco spot to, if nothing else, just make their presence known that, they do still exist. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the 49ers here in this game. It feels like a San Francisco spot to win in. If they can get the running game going and play some balanced football early, it feels like you could make it tough for the Rams to come back. Ultimately, Los Angeles has had tough times in Levi's throughout the McVay era, especially in prime time. So honestly, I think you got to go with the 49ers for several reasons, but that being one of them. So I'm going to pick the face slate of games. Final NFC wildcard spot. Head down to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Marshawn Lattimore is making his return to the field for the first time since the beginning of the year, and it's going to be against his former team. Now, the Saints, got to give them credit. They've been keeping these games close. They've been playing these games tough, and I kind of expect the same here. I think the Saints could absolutely play this game tough and down to the wire, but ultimately, it just feels like, considering there's uncertainty at who's going to play quarterback and Derek Carr, honestly, I'd probably say he doesn't play this week. I do got to go ahead and give this to Washington. I think they pick up their 9th win of the year and their first winning season since, God, it would be 2015 in that case, because no, I don't think Washington's had a winning season since then. And the Saints, I definitely feel like could be a pain in their ass, but ultimately, I do think Washington, the better team, will prevail in the end. Next game here, and look, the records may tell one story, but I honestly feel like you're going to see a very different one. The 12-1 Chiefs at the 3-10 Browns, but make no mistake, Kansas City has basically made it their mojo at this point to just find ways in the end to win games. And Cleveland, it feels like they are finding ways to keep most of these games with Jameis Winston entertaining. Now, they suffered, a blowout loss in Pittsburgh, but you're back home in Cleveland. It just feels like they could absolutely keep this one close with the Chiefs. We saw Carolina do it a few weeks ago with Kansas City, a game you probably expected them to run away with, and they didn't. So ultimately, I'm still going to pick the Chiefs, probably winning another close game. But I think Cleveland's going to keep it close at this point. It's how the Chiefs are rolling this year. But I am going to pick Kansas City to win. Next game, the Cincinnati Bengals coming off of a win on Monday Night Football. Really, any threat that their season was hanging by depended on that result. So for them to get a win, obviously, it does mean something. Heading to Tennessee to take on a Titans team that just is not really, I think you look at Tennessee and you really kind of expected this. You expected them to have their woes, expected them to have their growing pains year one. Brian Callahan is going to get a pass for a lot of it. Ultimately, Cincinnati's the better team. I feel like you got to pick the Bengals in this spot to win and, maybe try to keep their season interesting at least for a little bit longer. Next game, Miami at Houston. This was a tough game to pick. One of the tougher games to pick this week because you could honestly see two apiece playing in an indoor stadium. They almost never open that roof in Houston. It just feels like this is a spot that Miami can thrive in outside of Hard Rock Stadium. It's a dome stadium, and you are playing in a comfortable environment. But at the same time, Houston, I really even feel like, with the division that they're in, how much do they necessarily have to worry? But at the same time, I still feel like the Dolphins have their issues. They barely did beat the Jets, and those division games can go either way. The Texans are coming off of a week of rest. So in a close one, I am going to pick Houston, even though I would not be shocked if Miami won. I am picking Houston in a close one to pull it out and take a step closer, honestly, at clinching that AFC South division title. Next game we have here, 8-5 Baltimore. Honestly, Baltimore, I think you look at it and say they are playing better than the record indicates. I really feel like you look at it and say 5 losses. That's just a little bit too much. They've lost some games that they should have won. You can very well look at it and say they should be 10-3 right now at the very least at the Giants. And I don't feel like I got to explain this. I think that this game speaks for itself. I don't think the Giants stand a freaking chance in this game. I think Baltimore is going to dominate them. Lock of the week, moving on. Next game here, battle of a couple 3-10 teams. A game that is very important to draft positioning. You talk about these games at the end of the season. Yes, a lot of playoff implication games, but also some games that hold heavy draft consequences. The New York Jets at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I really feel like if you would have looked at this a few years ago, you'd say these two teams are finally heading in the right direction. But no, these two teams back at square one in the bottom of the NFL. And ultimately, man, it's a game you could see going either way. The Jaguars are at home. But the Jets, I feel like, have been at least. They're trying to play with a little bit of life. So I'm going to give the Jets the win here. I feel like it's going to be a close game. Probably you're going to see a game that looks like maybe either team doesn't really want to win, but ultimately the Jets, they do come away with it. Just because I feel like Jacksonville, the quarterback situation without Trevor Lawrence playing, it is definitely a downgrade. So I'm going to pick the Jets. Next game here, the Dallas Cowboys. That was just a bad loss to the Bengals. That was a game that it looked like they had, and then it just fell right through their hands as they head to Charlotte to take on a Panthers team that, despite their record at 3-10, you got to give credit to. If I think a couple plays go differently, they could very well be 6-7 right now. Carolina is playing competitive football, respectable football, and they are showing potential. I really just feel like it's a matter of putting it all together in these tough situations. And ultimately, I really feel like in this game, Dallas, they won a few games, but I really feel like that loss to the Bengals could really bring them back down. And it feels like without the Panthers are playing, they're due to finally break through and get one of these wins. And I'm gonna give the Panthers a win here. I feel like Carolina is due to get a win, due to beat Dallas. It just, man, it really does feel like it is what is meant to happen. The Panthers, obviously I have no love lost for the team, but you got to give credit where credit is due. Bryce has been playing significantly better. So I think it is finally time that, that hard work pays off and they get another win. And I'm going to give it to them right here over Dallas. Heading into the 4:00 window. We don't have any 4:05 games this week, just all 4:25 games. This one right here, I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on. Honestly, don't want to be doing it, but it's a situation we've been dealt with. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the LA Chargers. The Chargers coming off of, and it happens to everyone when they face the Chiefs. It happened at Tampa. Just Kansas City finding a way in the end to win. The Bucs come in riding a 3-game winning streak. But I'd be lying if I said they do not look all that convincing. Now they're finding ways to win games, but even I really feel like you look at the game versus Carolina, they honestly should have lost that game. And then you take a look at the game versus the Raiders. Yes, they got out to the 14-0 lead. But they let Vegas back in the game, and it really it was 14-10 for a lot of that game. And ultimately they pulled away late, but it still felt like they were just letting Vegas hang around. They weren't able to put them away. So I do feel like Tampa Bay's due for another loss, and I feel like they're going to get it here, assuming Ladd McConkey is back. I feel like the Chargers should be in a position to where they can come out and take care of business and win this game. Ladd McConkey is playing. That will be another big spot for him. So if you're in fantasy playoffs, I would probably honestly suggest starting Ladd McConkey. So, but ultimately, I got to pick the Chargers here. Next game, a game with a lot of AFC playoff implications as far as the wild card goes. Denver hosting Indianapolis. The Colts all season, it feels like, have just been hanging around. We don't really feel like they're all that good, but they're just hanging around for that final wild card spot. And if they can beat Denver this weekend, they could put themselves right back in that conversation. But with that being said, I really do feel like that Denver, it's a tough game to pick. It's not like the Colts can't go in there and win. I just don't know with how inconsistent Indianapolis has been if you can count on it. And Denver, they are playing better football as it currently stands. So I gotta go ahead and give this to the Broncos here. Next game we have here, the 3-10 Patriots at the 6-7 Cardinals. Arizona, definitely a big blow to their playoff chances last week. In the loss to Seattle, getting swept by them. And really, you kind of need a win here to keep any hope alive. Now, I think the good news is that New England really is not all that good, and they should be able to take care of business and win this game, even though, obviously, I think you got to keep in mind, anything could happen, but ultimately, I am going to pick Arizona to win. I feel like they're the better team. And I feel like they're going to ultimately come away with this one. Now, you want to talk about what could honestly be a potential preview of what you're going to see in New Orleans the second Sunday in February. This might actually be it. The Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions. This is the matchup of the year. I would really honestly say that Detroit, obviously, they've been the kings of the NFC. Buffalo, they're the only team to beat the Chiefs. They've already clinched their division. They've been absolutely amazing all year. They did lose to the Rams, but they've been playing absolutely amazing all year. And I really feel like most people would not mind seeing this being a Super Bowl matchup. We're going to get a little preview of just what could be this week. And listen, I keep doing it. You keep looking at, why do you keep betting against Detroit? Eventually they're going to lose one. They keep finding ways to win. Detroit, I feel like, and it's no disrespect to a team like Green Bay that is really good, but Buffalo, I feel like if there's one team that is playing with the equal amount of intensity that Detroit plays with, it is Buffalo in terms of how physical they can be. And that's the thing, is they really are more of a ground and pound football team with James Cook and with Josh Allen, who can obviously move the football with his legs. And obviously the Lions, Sonic and Knuckles, you still got to, keep them in check. This is really, I feel like, going to end up being a game of who can honestly establish their rhythm early. And playing in Detroit's going to be tough, but I got to give this to the Bills. And I know I keep doing it, but I got to give this to Buffalo. I just feel like, it is a spot that they have to win. They don't necessarily have to win, but it just feels like Detroit's due for a loss. And Buffalo does, have to win to, once again, make a statement and get back on track if you really want to keep pace with the Chiefs. But either way, this is going to, I absolutely think, be the game of the week. Next game we have here, and going on is simultaneously with the game in Detroit, the battle for Pennsylvania, the Steelers and the Eagles, the two teams, they have 10-plus wins, both of them. But ultimately, I do feel like with Pittsburgh, the big thing is that even though they're winning games, you don't think they faced anyone like the Eagles. And I really feel like that's going to be the big story. With how hot Saquon Barkley has been, how hot that Eagles running game has been, the defense is doing their job. I feel like you got to give this to Philadelphia here. They feel like the better team. It feels like a game that they come out and win. But at the same time, Pittsburgh, they are playing respectable ball. But I got to give this win to Philadelphia. Sunday Night Football in Seattle. This is going to be a very good game. I really feel like it is. Two teams in the NFC in playoff position. Green Bay looking to extend the cushion of the wild card race. Seattle really looking to take a step forward and wrapping up the NFC West. And it's one of those games I think you look at and you say, if Green Bay can get Josh Jacobs going, it can definitely combat that environment. But these are just the types of games Seattle, especially with Pete Carroll, would win. Now, it is no longer Pete Carroll. It is Mike McDonald. This is really one of the first big-time spots that he has been in as a head coach in primetime on Sunday night in a very important team, in a very important game against a very good Green Bay team. And I feel like it's going to be a close game, but I got to give this to Seattle. I feel like Seattle is going to find a way to pull this game out, and they're going to get the win. It feels like one of those games. It could go either way, but it feels like a Seattle game. This feels like a Seattle game to win. So ultimately, I am going to pick the Seahawks. Monday night, we got 2 games this week. First game, the 4-9 Bears at the Minnesota Vikings. And Minnesota, they're just on a winning streak too. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that I really feel like this is a gutsy pick. But listen, it just feels like Minnesota it feels like that has to be the direction of the Vikings, that they are eventually due to lose a game at some point. And kind of a very gutsy call. Honestly, I might have been better off making this call with the other Monday night game, but I'm going to pick the Bears to actually win. I feel like and you look at it also, Chicago did go in there and they won last year on Monday night. It just feels like one of those spots where it's a longer week. You're having to sit around for a day, more antsy. This just feels like a spot that benefits the team I don't think you would expect to win. I feel like Chicago can absolutely keep it close and ultimately may come out on top with the win. And I'm going to pick it here. I feel like Chicago, they still have the weapons. They still have Caleb at quarterback. And obviously, it was not a good start in San Francisco. I really feel like you're going to look for Thomas Brown to build off of that. And, I feel like ultimately the Bears, they are due to get another win. And I could absolutely see him being in this spot. So I'm going to pick the Bears. Final game of the week. And oh boy. This could really be something. Now, the Falcons have lost 4 straight games. And I saw earlier today that Aiden O'Connell might be looking to try to suit up in this game. Obviously, there will be an extra day of rest. If he does not, Desmond Ridder will be the quarterback for the 2-11 Las Vegas Raiders in this game. And I'm telling y'all right now, that is the last thing I would want to deal with in this game. Listen, I ultimately think should win. We got to win a game eventually. We got to just plots before. Ultimately, I'm going to pick this team to win. In a position to where you really got no choice but to win. Let's make that clear. You got no choice now but to win, or else you can forget the season for a moment. I think everything that you've really done over the past few years is going to come into extreme questioning if you lose a game like this on Monday night, nationally televised. So with that being said, I'm going to pick the Falcons to win, but very, very much cautiously doing so. Anyways, with that being said, Week 15, exciting slate of games, I will say, this week. Definitely looking forward to a lot of these games. And with that being said, I will see you all in the next one.